that just happened about 10 minutes ago. Jerry West has passed away at the age of 86. He was the logo and certainly a friend of the show. We tried to have him on. He'd be mad at me if I was emotional. He'd be like, what are you crying about? We tried to have him on recently, and he wasn't feeling well. I think he had a cold or the flu, and his wife said, try again. I think the last time we had him on was a little less than a year ago. And, he's a friend of the show and integral part of the show. Came on many, many, many times. Joined us in studio a couple of times when we were in Los Angeles. But this is tough. Yeah, Paulie, help me out.
I just got to tell you, man, we found out about 3 or 4 minutes before you did. Sometimes we get information before you, and none of us in this room wanted to walk over and tell you this. We were waiting for the break. And, I know how important this guy was to you. I mean, we talk about Walter Payton for me, or everyone has an athlete that, and I think work on the show a long time. I'm sure he was your hero, your dad's. And then, and we saw a couple times, maybe about 10 years ago, he started coming on the show and he was sitting there with you and talking basketball. And I could tell that you were like kind of giddy. Like, I can't believe.
Well, I saw my dad.
Yeah. And I think
they were similar age.
Jerry walked out one day and he goes, "Thank you, my friend." And I could see you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's not something that's supposed to happen. And then on our 10th anniversary, Fritzy and I and Seaton and all the guys had an idea to surprise you for the 10th anniversary of the show. And we're like, let's ask Jerry West to come in at 7 a.m. West Coast time.
And he looked immaculate.
He was perfectly dressed.
Yeah.
He had to go on a flight 2 hours later, took time out of his day.
Yeah.
And we surprised you with a cake from Jerry's Cakes in Torrance. Yeah. And if it's not the greatest moment ever on the show.
Yep.
I wish we didn't have to tell you this, bud.
Yeah. Yes,
Jerry West has one of the most unique positions in sports history, and that what just one figure can occupy. He was a tremendous player. He's the logo of the sport. He is instrumental in drafting several of people who had then gone on to become some of the greatest people ever. His impact on the game is immeasurable, just in one person. And you could take, as an executive, it's one way, just as a marketing, I guess, even though it wasn't really his doing, just the logo itself is massive. And then just him as a player, it's like 3 or 4 separate careers that were all massive.
All Hall of Fame careers.
Yeah. I mean, his role and impact really can't be measured.
He might be the most impactful person in the history of the NBA.
While also wanting almost no attention for anything. To be the logo and also be a very private man. I mean, he would do interviews and share things.
He never wanted credit. And he brought up the fact that he couldn't even watch or listen to the Laker games because it ate him up. You know, he had a hard time sitting there watching a game because he was so competitive, and that, there's only so much you can do. You put a product out on the floor and you hope that they win. But he said that he would drive around Los Angeles sometimes when the Lakers would be playing in an NBA Finals there. But we were very lucky. We were very lucky that he opened himself up to us and developed a relationship there. But Jerry West passed away at the age of 86.
I always found when we'd have him on the show, it was like going to a time machine with a different type of person. A gentleman from the 50s and 60s and 70s that said, that's how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I'm going to be a gentleman. I'm not going to buy into all this new culture of all this stuff. And it was like meeting Babe Ruth or something like that. I didn't grow up on Jerry West like you did. And when we first had him in the studio, it's kind of shocking. Like, that's exactly who I expected him to be. He outlived the expectations of what a class individual. And we'd have him on. I'm like, that's the kind of person I wish I could be someday.
And he wrote a book, and he had an alcoholic father, and his father used to physically abuse his mom. And I remember Jerry telling the story that he slept with a shotgun under his mattress. And he said that he told his dad, "You do it again and I'm going to blow your head off." All right. Well, let me do my job here.
I do want to ask you one thing, Dan, about Jerry West. We always talk about the TV era. There's certain players that because they didn't play in the TV era, they're not going to ever get their due, like a young Dr. J or a David Thompson or a player, Elgin Baylor. Jerry West seems to me like one of those guys that, boy, if there was more TV around or more great films of seeing him play, because I look at his stats and they're insane.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at 35 and 17 in the NBA Finals, that's insane.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like he doesn't get his due as a basketball player. Didn't get his due.
Yeah, and you're right about not being in the TV era, having the NBA Finals on tape delay back then. But his numbers, even at West Virginia, and he and Oscar Robertson were, kind of competitive peers, in at the same time. And Marvin brings up a great point. Like the first time you got to see somebody who had a jump shot in the NBA, it's Jerry West. Everybody else was shooting like set shots. All of a sudden, Jerry's off the dribble, hitting jumpers. And you got to be going, wait a minute, this is new. This is different. And he had a beautiful shot. I always tell people, always remember Jerry West, that last dribble is even harder, so you can go up quicker. Had a great release. Gentleman, he was a wonderful, wonderful spokesperson for the NBA. Represented it quite well. Yes, Marv?
Yeah, he was playing at a completely different speed. When you watch old clips of him on NBA TV, and also, guys, he brought together Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah.
The fact that he signed Shaq from Orlando, then drafted a kid 13th, traded with the Hornets, and it was just like, wait, so you did this. You won the NBA Finals MVP on a losing team, and then you draft Kobe Bryant and you sign Shaq, and it's like 3 different generations were all linked to this guy.
I also, when I first really got to talk to Jerry West, now I saw him play in person in 1971. Had beautiful penmanship, got his autograph. And my dad always said, that's the ball player you want to be like. You want to be like him. And I wanted to be like Jerry West. I wasn't like Jerry West. And I wasn't alone in wanting to be like Jerry West. So I had Rick Riley, the great writer from Sports Illustrated, on. And Jerry was part of the Memphis Grizzlies front office. And Rick Riley alluded to the fact that maybe Memphis was tanking. And I don't know who they were tanking for to get a draft pick. And he said it on our show. I get a phone call. And it's from Jerry West. And Jerry West rips me for 5 minutes. He is cursing me out. I mean, I am shaken. I called Paulie. I said, first of all, Jerry West just called. He goes, "Oh, awesome." I go, no. He was yelling at me. Why was he yelling? I said, Rick Riley said that Memphis would be tanking, and Jerry said, bleep-dee, bleep-dee, bleep-dee. I'd never tank, ever, never. I can't stand losing. I hate, 5 minutes. He went on this long soliloquy, diatribe, monologue, and I'm going, and I kept saying, Jerry. Finally stopped. And I said, Jerry, I didn't say that. Rick Riley did. He goes, okay, I'm sorry. And then he hung up. And I'm going,
you were still shook up.
I was devastated. And then I remember talking to him. And I said, look, I told him the whole backstory. I told him everything. And he said, okay. And he was giving me like another chance. And after that, he was wonderful with me. Whether we had him on the show, whether I got to talk to him privately, or I got to ask him about things that were off the record, and just having that